Hey everyone, it's Byron. I'm here to testify for Jesus Christ. I see consistently where people are saying tribulation or the tribulation includes God's wrath. And I just wanted to do a video and limit it to just what is tribulation and what is God's wrath. So here I have a screen, tribulation. You see that it's Strong's word, G2347. And the word is thlipsis. I don't know how to spell that. That word, that Greek word, is used 45 times in the New Testament. And in short, it means pressure. And that's in a literal sense, such as you getting pressure on your hand, pushing you, or somebody hitting you with a baseball bat. That's pressure. Or a figurative sense. So figuratively, you could be depressed or down and out because you don't have money. And other words that are used in the English language for the Greek word thlipsis is afflicted or affliction, anguish, burdened, persecution, tribulation, and trouble. I looked into Webster's dictionary. I look at old dictionaries. I try to get dictionaries that are closer to the time the Bible was translated. In this case, it's like 200 years, a little over 200 years afterwards. But I pulled this definition from Webster's 1828 dictionary. And Webster says tribulation is that which afflicts the body or depresses the spirits. And it's any severe affliction, distress, calamity, or grievance, straits, difficulties, embarrassments, or the distress they occasion. And then it says, we speak of the pressure of poverty or want, the pressure of debts, the pressure of taxes, the pressure of afflictions or sorrows. Now I grabbed a couple verses out of the Bible that have the English word tribulation in them. And one is Matthew 24:21. Jesus states, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time. No, nor ever shall be. Try to remember to keep your thought of tribulation, and in this case it's great tribulation, try to keep that consistent with the definition that was already provided. Sometimes we find ourselves assuming, because of past teaching, what the word means, and sometimes it's good to just break it down and say, hey, what does this mean? Another verse, Matthew 13:21, states this, yet hath he no root in himself, but dureth for a while. Then when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. I wanted to go in offended because we find offended in the verse that we just read from the parable of Jesus. But we also have offended listed in Matthew 24. I just want to read this. Offended, it's a Greek word. The Strong's number is 4624. Offended is an English word. The Greek word is scandalizo or scandalizo. You can almost say we got the word scandal or scandalous from it. And it means to scandalize, to entrap, that is, trip up, figuratively stumble, or entice to sin, apostasy, or displeasure, to make, to offend. So when we read this word, this in context in Matthew 24, you can read it like this. Matthew 24, verse 9, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted. Now, afflicted is the Greek word that we talked about earlier, phlipsis, in which you also can use the word tribulation. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted or tribulated, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended. So you can read that several ways based on the definition on the screen. You could say, and then shall many stumble, or then shall many apostatize because of the pressure that's being put on them, and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. There's a parable that Jesus used with the word offended, and I just wanted to read this, and it'll give you a little more understanding of being offended. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one and catcheth away that which was sown in his heart. Then is he which received seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy received it. Yet hath he no root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. You could say, for when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he walks away. He falls away. So you can see right there the impact of tribulation, and then how tribulation can impact a person's walk with the Lord. Finally, I just want to show for tribulation each of the verses in the Bible that contain the Greek word thlipsis. Now, just remember that as you look at that, you may not see the English word tribulation itself. It could be, afflicted, anguish, words like that were used in earlier slides. Okay, on the other side, you have God's wrath. And I'm going to use two examples of that. One is wrath of the Lamb, and the other is the wrath of God. Under the wrath of the Lamb, I'm going to use a verse in Revelation 6. In Revelation 6:15, it says, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freedman, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. And when you see wrath in that particular verse, it's a Greek word, it's Strong's number G3709, orgy, I think is how you say it. But it stands for violent passion, like someone was really mad at you and they came across at you with violent passion. But we have to understand it. It's used within the verse or the phrase wrath, the violent passion of the Lamb. In other words, that in the English language that may work there would be anger of the Lamb, indignation of the Lamb, vengeance of the Lamb, and then wrath of the Lamb. There's another Greek word involved when you're dealing with wrath. So we have to look at that too. In the phrase wrath of God, Revelation 14:10, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And that wrath right there is called thumos. It's Strong's word G2372. It also deals with passion. But in this particular one, you can say he was so mad and so passionate in his fierceness, he was breathing hard when he executed this wrath. And you can also use the English word fierceness, indignation, and wrath. So you can see from looking at great tribulation, we've had tribulation since the beginning of time. Cain put Abel into tribulation. Cain actually killed Abel. That's been along since the beginning of time. When Ishmael was born, Ishmael mocked Isaac. This tribulation stuff has gone from the beginning of time. However, when you look at great tribulation, you can realize great tribulation means there's more tribulation than there's ever been. And that involves a lot of things, but it doesn't involve the direct fierceness and wrath of God or Jesus Christ, as in wrath of the Lamb. It's only after the great tribulation, when Christ comes, that we see the wrath. And you see the people sitting there saying, hide us from the wrath of the Lamb. Because he's going to start it's going to be direct involvement of God or God through Jesus Christ. That's direct. That is God on man, just as the picture shows there with that fist slamming down on the earth. The other one is, you could say pretty much man on man, man against the elements, man going through tough times because of droughts, things like that. So there's a difference between great tribulation and God's wrath. It is so clear. Scripture tells us we're not appointed to wrath. I don't disagree. But just because Scripture tells us we're not appointed to wrath, that doesn't mean we won't go through great tribulation, just like Jesus Christ stated in Matthew 24. It does mean that we won't go through the wrath of the Lamb and God's wrath that we see in Revelation. So, thank you.